Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Huncho, back at you again with another video. And so for this next one, we're going to be taking a look at a case that's recently wrapped up that's surrounding YS from 9th Street. Now, for you guys who are unfamiliar with YS, he's a UK drill rapper who comes from the Graham Park estate in Colindale, and again falls under the group 9th Street. We've had a look into some other 9th Street rappers over these past few months or so. The other day, we took a look at how Soze had been pulled over by armed police on the motorway for allegedly robbing a cannabis factory, and we also did a throwback case on YB. If you haven't seen those videos, I will leave them linked down in the description below. Feel free to go and give them a watch. In regards to YS though, he's made a little noise for himself and is quite known within the scene, but yesterday we got word that he was sentenced over a murder case that he was recently on trial for. A lot of people have asked me to cover this story, but I thought I'd wait until the sentencing date to cover it. If you guys follow me over on my Instagram, then you'll know that we shared this story when he was found guilty of the murder, but at that point he hadn't been sentenced, but again he has now, hence why I'm covering it. So let's take a look into what exactly went on and why YS was recently sentenced over this murder. This story takes place on the 29th of February 2020, where 24-year-old construction worker Asante Campbell, who specialised in railway track repairs, had agreed to work overtime, which would have taken him through to the night. The plan for Asante was to drive to the Rockfield House estate in Hendon to meet his friend Jason Taylor, who would have been waiting for him, and then the two would set off together in Jason's van to head to work. After kissing his daughter and fiancé goodbye, Asante headed out and turned up just as planned. He got to the estate, reversed into a parking space within the car park in the estate, and waited for Jason to arrive. But before Jason arrived, YS and three other men, one who hasn't been named as of right now because I don't believe he was arrested and charged in connection with this incident and is still at large, but there was two men who were also with YS, that being Kofi Abusa and Hafid Omar, and they had all pulled into the car park armed with weapons and were ready for violence. What I'm about to tell you next is Asante getting attacked, but we have to remember that this all takes place within quite literally seconds. So the driver of the black Toyota Prius, believed to be Hafid, had drove into the estate and reversed into the space alongside Asante's car. Almost immediately, all four jump out of the Prius, and YS produces a big knife and a sheath which is thrown to the ground. The first people to reach the car after getting out were three men, including YS and Kofi, and again that third person who hasn't been named, and believe it or not, it's said that the three were that eager to act out on violence, they had actually scuffled with each other in order to reach Asante's car. Asante tries to pull away, but the group were determined not to let him escape. Asante had his window open but couldn't escape because the gang had surrounded his car, and because of this, repeated thrusts were made through his window and Asante was powerless to try and protect himself. After the attack, the group fled. Of course, Asante died at the scene, but it seems as if Kofi and Hafid were in a happy mood as they travelled to a club in South London in the Prius. Here they enjoyed a night out with friends and then returned home the next morning. Eventually, Kofi, Hafid and YS would go on to be arrested and charged in connection with this incident and were recently on trial, which has just wrapped up. In court, a timeline of events is laid out which I've just explained to you, and prosecutor Oliver Glasgow QC told the court that it was a mystery as to why Asante had even been murdered in this situation, as he had no relation or connection to any of the group, and said that this boiled down to a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. We don't have much details from court, but we do have testimony from YS as he gave evidence in court, so we'll go through his back and forth with the prosecution. So given evidence in court, YS said that he knew his co-defendants through drug dealing but had been elsewhere on the night of the killing, and also accepted that he did spend time with them driving around selling cannabis and bagging drugs at the flat of Kofi's girlfriend despite allegedly working for rival dealers. He also said that he sold Class B drugs after being put under pressure from a senior drug dealer whose identity he refused to reveal. He was asked about if he was subject to any physical threats, to which he claimed that this superior drug dealer and other drug dealers would beat him up a bit if he did something wrong. When asked about drill music videos with him wearing the chain with the initials GP, the prosecution claim stood for the Graham Park estate, he he simply said he wore it because it looked good and not because of the affiliation with the area. In court, he was questioned about the content of his music, with him saying that his lyrics explored different things going on in the world, including stabbings, shootings, knives and drug dealing, and he said he made the music because that's what the fans wanted to hear. He said it was a character in his music that was made up so he could portray a realistic lifestyle that he wasn't necessarily living, so again it was realistic to the fans because that's what they wanted to hear. It was also heard that in retaliation for the killing, Kofi had been stabbed, although again Asante wasn't a gang member and it isn't believed he's affiliated with any gangs. It's thought that YS had fled London and made his way up to Leeds, where he was eventually arrested in connection with this incident. YS would go on to tell the court he made his way up there to deliver drugs and then he was going to come back, and he denied that he fled in fear of an attack on himself. I'm unsure from reports how long he actually had been in Leeds, but it's believed he was arrested in June of 2020, so that would have been months after the murder. He was also quizzed about his DNA matching the sheath of the knife that was used in the stabbing and claimed that it belonged to his twin brother rather than himself. He said, quote, "It's not my DNA, I never touched that knife, it's not mine, it must be his," again in reference to his twin brother. After a trial at the Old Bailey though, both YS and Kofi were found guilty of murder, whilst the jury failed to reach a verdict on Hafid, and so a retrial is to go ahead for him, and he was remanded into custody and was denied bail ahead of his further trial date. And yesterday it was believed that both Kofi and YS were handed life sentences with the minimum term of 19 years. And so a pretty sad story to say the least, how Asante was seemingly a hard-working, innocent young man who unfortunately had his life taken away because of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like the prosecution said, only the people that committed this murder will know their true intentions of that night. And it's also believed that Asante was a kind-hearted person and had a charitable nature, and it's believed that on a few occasions he had supported the family of a suicidal girl. He dropped a complete stranger off at the airport, and he even stepped in to play football with a boy in the park who was playing football by himself. So you can see what kind of person he was, and again, for his life to get taken away like that is extremely sad to say the least. But I do want to say rest in peace to Asante, and we have to remember that he's leaving a fiance behind and a small child along with his extended family as well, so I do want to send my condolences over to them at this very hard time. But let me know what you guys think of this down in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.